Hello again, darlings. Coming to you live from my office / craft room / storage room. Coronavirus! Coronavirus! It's getting real! It's getting real! It's a coronavirus! The one good thing I can say about quarantine. Do you see her ear in my class? Okay, baby. This means put me down. The one good thing about quarantine, I get to see my cat more. Okay. The bad thing about quarantine, everything else. All right, so we are going to look at our first activity, which is thesis statements, denotation, and connotation. So first off, where's my pen? Okay, I'm just as struggling at home as I am at school. I've kind of went through your activities, if you look on the Google Drive, and kind of highlighted the biggie things and the things I need you to do. So on this front page here, we've got an explanation of what a thesis statement is. Now, you should know what a thesis statement is by now, but sometimes we need to be reminded. So a thesis statement, basically, is it's a topic of your essay. A lot of people, including myself, call it like a mini table of contents. It tells me the topic of your essay, and then it tells me how you're going to sort of explain it in our essays. And as we know from years and years and years and years of teaching, we never want to say, I'm going to explain to you, or in this essay, I'm going to tell you, etc., etc. We never, ever, ever want to do that. So the thesis statement here explains the topic of the essay and explains how that topic will be presented in the essay. And it's always the last sentence of the introduction or the very first paragraph of the essay. This is all true. Now, this front page has been completely done for you of an example of how I want you to work the rest. Now, if you look on the, by the way, hands are clean. Right here, you've got your next section. And so the writing prompt says, the state of Illinois has been locked in a debate for several years as to whether or not the driving age should be raised from 16 to 18. Some people feel that 16-year-olds lack responsibility and maturity to handle the significant privilege of driving. Others argue that 16-year-olds use their license for much more than social events. In your opinion, should the driving age be raised from 16 to 18? So when it says, what is the topic? Well, okay, should we raise the driving age to 18? What's your opinion? I can't do that for you. That's your opinion. So whatever that is. And then you have to write 3 reasons that support your claim. And then you write your thesis here. The one down here has been done for you to kind of help with that. Again, just another example. And this topic is, should cell phones be banned in high school? Again, it's your opinion, but I just kind of filled in my own for you. It says, what's the topic? Cell phones in high school. Second one here is your opinion. I say that cell phones should not be allowed in high school. That's just my teacher coming at you here. And then I had to put 3 reasons for an argumentative essay. This would be like your pre-writing for an argumentative essay. In my opinion, I put can increase bullying. They're too distracting in the classroom and they could aid in cheating. And then you write your thesis at the bottom. And you can see my thesis says, students should not be allowed to have cell phones in the classroom, semicolon. We did this back when we were doing argumentative essays. Cell phone usage is too distracting. Cell phones increase bullying. And phones make it easier to cheat. That is all 3 of my points written in a nice little formula of a thesis statement. So that's the first part of the activity. The second one is just a little tiny page. It's about just kind of like a reminder of our genres, that, you know, what we've been through. The first one's historical fiction. So this is, the genre is a fake or fictional story that takes place in a real time period. It can provide details about historical facts, people in history, and events that happened during this time frame. I have put some examples here that I know that you've read, like the Crucible movie. There we go. That would be a historical fiction because it's about the real events of the Salem witch trials. You read that as a junior. But it happens in a fictional way because, you know, the real Abigail Williams was 13. There was, in history, there's nothing to suggest that Abigail and John Proctor had an affair like they do in the play. We know this. Second one I put is To Kill a Mockingbird. You probably read that as a sophomore. And then the Titanic movie. It's a perfect one. The Titanic was real. It was a real thing. It really happened, you know, sunk on its maiden voyage. But Jack and Rose, Leonardo DiCaprio's character and Kate Winslet's character, the love story, is fictional. And that's what makes it a historical fiction piece. It's a real time period. It's got real costumes, real words and jargon that they would have used, and real sort of like, what do I want to say? Like cultural significance, you know, the first class versus the third class and all that stuff. It was depicted great, but the love story is fake. The second one is dystopia. We just read about that. The genre is a fictional story in which it usually takes place in the future. The genre involves a character that feels like the laws and the social guidelines are too strict, blah, blah. Seniors, if you're tuning in, it would be 1984, the novel that we just read. Juniors, if you're tuning in, we haven't read 1984 because it's a senior novel, but things that you might have seen or read would be The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. That's where they pick one human sacrifice a year. It's a common short story in the 9th and the 8th grade. Sound of Thunder by Ray Bradbury. I do that with my freshmen every year. And maybe a movie. It's allergies, not corona. But then again, who knows at this point? A movie that you might have seen would be Hunger Games or The Maze Runner. So it's usually a tale set in the future, where there's like a lot of government control, a lot of technology a lot of times, sort of technology getting scarily away with everything. And our character, our main character, our protagonist, is usually like, whoa, this doesn't seem right. Kind of like when the whole Facebook thing broke up and we realized that Facebook was keeping our data and watching us. Mark Zuckerberg, you know, if you get zucked, that is like a kind of like a dystopian look into it. And then the third genre on here is a tragedy. I think a lot of you probably already know what this is, but a tragedy is when our protagonist is put through a lot of sorrow and sadness, and you know, we kind of see him go from being like a really strong character falling from grace, and a lot of flaws come out, whether they be mentally or physically, whatever, and they just have no coping mechanism for these things. A lot of people say, oh, a tragedy, everybody dies. True. Usually a lot of people die. Like 90% of the people die, but that's not it. There's other things to it too. And that would be kind of like that fall from grace. And some tragedies. Number one, Romeo and Juliet. I know that you have all looked at Romeo and Juliet. You know, Romeo dies, Juliet dies, a lot of other people die, Paris, you know, things like that. Another one, seniors, if you're tuning in, is Othello. We have read that. We read that earlier in the fall where, you know, I'm not going to say it because there's going to be some juniors tuning in and I don't want to ruin anything for next year when we finally get back to school. So what I've asked you to do at the bottom here is just do some multiple choice questions. So number one, which guideline would you least likely find in a historical fiction? A is details about the events that really happened during that time. No, you would find that. C is details about real people that lived during that time. No, you would find that. Just like in our Titanic movie, for example, we have real characters, you know, the unsinkable Molly Brown, she's real. Characters upholding the social guidelines of the time. No, we would. Okay. But B, coming back to B, themes about how life should have been lived during that time. Themes. No, that's not our theme. That's not our theme in a historical fiction. And the reason why I threw this tricky question in there is because you've got to really, really read when it comes to multiple choice. Sometimes they'll throw something in there because if that would have said how people should have lived, like the culture, you'd have been like, oh yeah, okay, sure. But when you throw in a little word there, theme about how life should have been lived, that's when it gets a little bit different because the theme of historical fiction is usually something fictional, okay? set in a real time period though. So the answer is B. Number 2, which guideline would least likely be found in a dystopia? Least likely. We've got A, the story set in the future. No, we know that. All dystopias are typically set in the future. Or in another dimension. The police and military presence is very strong. They are in dystopias. Very, very much are. Police, military, or any type of like surveillance system. We've always got a lot of surveillance. Protagonist hates the government and is fighting for change. No, we just said the protagonist, that's actually a dystopia. The protagonist doesn't like it. But now D, the protagonist loves the government. No. So the answer is D, because you'd least likely find that. Because this protagonist is not going to, they're not going to love their government. And number 3, which guideline would most likely be found in a tragedy? So now we're looking for most likely, not least likely, but most likely. A happy ending? No way. No, especially with all the dead people. The main character is mentally strong. No, we just talked about that. It's usually a fall from grace. They start out strong and then go down the hill. The family wins the lottery. That's just a silly. But almost everyone in the story dies. Yes. Okay. And then to the right here, to the right, I've asked you to fill in your own historical fiction that you've read in the past or seen. It can be TV or movies, whatever. Name a dystopia piece and then name a tragedy. So a lot of like dystopias that I've heard about is Handmaid's Tale. I already mentioned like the Maze Runner and stuff like that. Historical fiction, this could be Copper's Son if you had me as a freshman, juniors. This could also be like the movie Lincoln, if you've seen that. 12 Years a Slave, something like that. And then tragedy, Romeo and Juliet. What about the one that you would have read as sophomores? I'm Dora the Exploring here. That would be Julius Caesar, for example. Stuff like that. And then the final part of this first grade that you're getting on the 4th 9 weeks, the first activity, is the denotation versus connotation. So denotation, my cat, denotations versus connotation. So, and kind of like, simply put here, the denotation of a word is the dictionary definition. So if you can remember, denotation, denotation, dictionary definition of the word. The connotation is the feelings that you have with the word. So, especially if you had me as a freshman, something that we talk about, the denotation, the connotation, is when we read our novel Copper's Son and we talk about like racial words, because it is about an African slave back in 1776. No, I'm sorry. No, 1738. 1738. Okay. And we talk about how saying African American is typically someone with dark skin, but that's a good way. But if we were to refer to that person as the N-word, my goodness, we have a lot of strong feelings about that. Sadness, that's wrong. A feeling of that's wrong. Anger. If I would ever see someone being called the N-word, I would probably immediately get angry. So that would be the connotation. But if we say African American, the connotation with that is pretty neutral. Okay, it's a person from Africa or a person with darker skin. That's okay. So for example, the example at the top is the word mother. So the dictionary definition or the denotation of mother is the female parental unit, you know, our mom. Now, things are a little bit different in 2020. But that's the dictionary definition. We'll leave it at that. Now, the connotation is the feeling that you get with it. So mother is pretty neutral. Okay, that's my mother. All right, maybe she gave birth to me or maybe she adopted me. But when we use the word like mommy or mom, it might give us more of like a sweeter feeling. I know I never call my mother unless I'm trying to be like all fancy. I usually call her my mom or my mama. That maybe gives us feelings of like youth or something. Speaking of my mom, a lot of you guys know her. She's an extreme couponer. And that's moving down to this next part here. She's an extreme couponer. So if I say, you know, my mom, Susie, she's very thrifty. You say, oh, okay, that's awesome. She knows how to save money. But if I say, she is so cheap. Okay, well, that's not necessarily a good way to put it. So see the different connotations there. So on that next page, it's asking you to put these list of words in order of what you feel that they are in terms of denotation and connotation. Now, 1 and 2 have been done for you. So I'm going to do 3 and 4 with you just to kind of like do some stuff with you. So group 1 of words is gaze, look steadily, and stare. So we put look steadily in the denotation and then stare in the negative connotation because nobody likes to be stared at. Take a picture, it'll last longer. And then gaze. I know that gaze is not necessarily a word that we use very often, but if you're gazing at the sun, okay, maybe you've placed yourself into a different mindset. I know that I've thought a lot about the beach with this coronavirus. The second one is fragrance, odor, or a smell sensed by the olfactory nerve. The olfactory nerve being your nose, okay? So the denotation is the smell sensed by the olfactory nerve, okay? The fragrance, okay, that would be your positive connotation. Because that reminds you of like a good smelling perfume or a candle or a spray or something like that. But odor, ew, body odor. Okay, that's a negative connotation. So group 3 of words is brainwash, persuade, or influence one way or the other. So if you look at influence, I mean, that's pretty neutral because it says one way or the other. I'm influencing you to be a Democrat. I'm influencing you to be a Republican. Or maybe I'm influencing you to be third party and make your own. So in the middle of the chart under denotation, I'm going to put influence one way or the other. Okay, but now what about that negative connotation to the right of the chart? Brainwash or persuade? I think I'm going to go with brainwash because when we hear about brainwashing, especially in our dystopian novels, that is typically a negative thing. Okay, and then all the way to the left, I'm going to put persuade. And we do that when we write our argumentative essays, we persuade. And then you can do 4 through 11 on your own. And then this page right here, one example's been done for you, but you're choosing 2 words from this list right here, the same list. And you're writing, first off, you're writing the word, any word you want. Use this, write a sentence for that word, the denotation, the connotation, and the synonym with a different connotation. That just means like another word with a different connotation. So for example, I'm going to use, how about I use the word nosy. Nosy, we all know nosy. So on number 1, I'm going to write the word nosy. Okay, and then on 1A, it says a sentence in which a word appears. So I'm going to put the children were very nosy because they were trying to figure out where the Christmas presents were hid. I know we're a long way off from Christmas, but still. So that goes in 1A. And then the denotation, so this is like the dictionary definition. It says on this list, somewhat interested. You can put that Or you can put, they were, or they wanted to know the gifts. Okay, they wanted to know their gifts, normal here, okay? But now the connotation, nosy, that's a little, I'm gonna write negative, okay? It means that they were snooping, negative. They were snooping around to find where the presents were. And I know that I did that when I was a little kid with my friend Ashley. We used to snoop around in my mom's bedroom. Okay. Don't tell her I said that. And then a synonym with a different connotation. So we don't want to use nosy. We don't want to use snooping. How about curious? They were curious as to what their presents were going to be. Now I'm going to let you do the number 2 section on your own. And then this last section here, it says, okay. So it says to take one of these words again and write them in a sentence. Take one of the word groupings, I'm sorry, and write them in a sentence. So I used, down here, let me get this, sorry, you know, I don't know how to edit. When you take one of these word groupings and do it right here. So A has been done for you. And the A group of words is describe a wet street after the rain. So how am I going to rewrite that in a sentence? Describe a so I wrote right here, says, the street was waterlogged and soggy from the strong rain. And that's just using these. I just used A. Describe a wet street after the rain, the waterlogged and soggy street, you know, after the strong rain. So I've put in 2 words there to describe those. So you know what? I think I'm just going to which one do I want to do? Do I want to do H, the coronavirus? Well, yeah, I think I'm going to do the coronavirus because I'm having a lot of strong feelings about the coronavirus right now. So I'm going to do that under first practice. So the coronavirus is very, what do you want to say? I wish you could talk back with me, but I know you can't. So I'm going to say is very scary, because it is, and threatening to life as we know it. So obviously I did a negative connotation because I really hate the coronavirus right now. And by the way, seniors, I have a photo to share with you that I saw online. It's like it's a student drew it, not one of my students, a different student. I'm going to send it to you. But let's say that I wanted to do C, the challenging high school class, but I want to do a positive connotation. So I would say something like this. The challenging high school class will prepare me for the obstacles I will have in adulthood. How about although it is a challenge, it will teach me. So I could have said, if I want to do negative, I could have said, the challenging high school class is really tough and I just don't even understand why it has to be that bad. That would be like a negative connotation. Okay, so that's the first activity on your progress book. And I have tried to put a, I've got 15 tabs open. I've tried to put, I sent you this email Friday, and I don't know if, I'm not good at editing, I'm sorry. But as you can see right here, I've tried to put a list of due dates for those of you that are like me and like structure, but you know my policy. So wash your hands.